Welcome back to Anderson Acres. Today we're going to talk about one of the questions I get asked all the time. What are the best animals to start with if you're new to hobby farming? You're starting a hobby farm, never done it before. What should you start with? Well, if you've ever dreamed of having your own little barnyard, collecting fresh eggs, or raising animals for meat or milk, but you're not sure where to start, this video could be for you. Now, I'll tell you right up front, not every animal is beginner friendly. Cows and horses, for example, require a lot of land, strong fencing, and advanced knowledge to keep them healthy. Okay? They're more difficult to care for, they're more expensive to obtain, they're more difficult to rehome if it doesn't work out. So they are not necessarily the place to start. Okay? But there are quite a few animals that are easier to get started with. And they'll still teach you the ropes of animal care without overwhelming you and without costing you every penny of your savings. Which matters. I know we're not supposed to talk about money, but it matters. Okay? When you have a limited budget, starting with animals that are cheaper to start and not as expensive to maintain makes a big difference. Okay? That's Sauron. He's a good chicken. Okay, so today we're going to look at my top choices for beginner farm animals, including chickens, quail, rabbits, ducks, goats, and even bees. I'll explain what makes them great, what challenges to expect, and why they might be the right fit for your farm. Now, most people will not get all of these because if you're not interested in honey, you're not going to get bees. If you don't want to milk or process a goat for meat, you're probably not going to get goats. It's if you don't like rabbit meat, you're probably not going to get a rabbit, right? That kind of thing. So, not every single one of these animals is suitable for every person, but this is a good list to start with. So, let's jump right in and start with the classic chickens, okay? And yes, there's chickens in the background, there's chickens on the other side of the camera, there's chickens over there in the rabbit pen. We have a lot of chickens, and we enjoy our chickens. Chickens are by far one of the most popular farm animals for beginners, and it's really for a very good reason. They're relatively easy to care for, they don't require a ton of space, they reward you with fresh eggs almost daily, and most people can start with just a small flock, like 4 to 6 hens. That's good enough, and that'll supply your entire family with eggs most of the year. Chickens are also fun to watch, and each bird has its own quirky personality, and there's different breeds, so you can get something that you enjoy the look of, and not just something that is utilitarian. You can get something attractive to you, right? So all of that matters. Now, chickens are also good for your yard. They'll scratch around the dirt and they'll eat bugs out of your garden, and they'll even come running over to you just to see what you're up to. So they're also fun for companionship. Okay? They're not just practical, they're fun. They'll come running if they think you've got treats. I have a rooster just on the other side of the camera here staring at me because he thinks I might have snacks in my pocket. Don't you, Rusty? Rusty thinks I might have snacks. Rusty's a good bird, but I don't have snacks. So he's just going to have to live without snacks for a little bit. So, that said, chickens do have some specific chicken needs. You'll want a secure coop to keep them safe from predators like your foxes, raccoons, hawks, whatever predators you have in your area. The coop needs really good ventilation. I know I harp on ventilation, but it's really important. Ventilation will keep your birds alive. So lots of ventilation, okay? Lots. They need a good spot to roost at night and nest boxes to lay their eggs, or the back of my dad's truck. Giant nest box. Yeah, chickens have personality, and if you're not okay finding eggs in random places, either keep them confined or don't get chickens. Now, you'll also need to keep their coop fairly clean because chickens can be really messy, and no one likes the smell of a dirty chicken coop. Okay? Kept clean, there's a couple of chickens having a fit. Kept clean, chickens are wonderful. Okay? If they're not kept clean, they can stink. So know that with all animals, including chickens, there will be some cleanup required. The nice thing is that chickens are pretty forgiving. If you're still learning, they can handle a lot of the mistakes you will make as a beginner. Okay? As long as they've got food, water, and shelter, they tend to do just fine, even in really cold or really hot climates. They just need shelter from the weather, clean water, good quality food, and your attention, now and then, a clean space to live. They'll probably be okay. And they really are the gateway farm animal for a reason. Okay? They're easy to look after. Easy. So if you think you might want to get into hobby farming, but you're not sure what to start with, my recommendation will forever be chickens. Next up is quail. Want something small? These guys might be for you. If you're short on space, if you like something tiny, if you like the sound quail make, or if you're not allowed to have chickens where you are, but quail aren't regulated, you can sneak some quail in. Quail are tiny birds compared to chickens, but don't let their size fool you. They are incredibly productive for their footprint. Quail hens start laying at just 6 to 8 weeks old, a lot younger than chickens, and they lay a lot of eggs for their size. The eggs are smaller, of course, but they're delicious and packed with nutrients. Quail grow fast, which makes them a good option both for eggs and meat. Okay, they reach full size very, very quickly. So you're able to get them laying eggs if you're in it for eggs, or you're able to process them for meat if that's the way you roll. Either way, these guys are ready quick. The big advantage with quail is actually housing. You don't need a big coop or a large pasture. They can live in small pens, hutches, and even aviaries, as long as they have shelter from the wind, protection from the predators, and they can't escape. Remember, they're smaller. They require smaller wire to keep them in. Okay? They will thrive fairly easily. These guys are hardy things. We get 40 below here, and our quail have never even skipped a beat. Okay? They are hardy, happy, easy to care for birds. Okay? Feed costs are also really low because, okay, pound for pound, they eat a little more than chickens, but because they're so small, they don't seem like it. So they're cheap in that way too, but there are still challenges. Because quail are delicate little birds, when they're little, they can be difficult to raise from baby. People like to joke about how they're looking for a way to die. Kinda. Not as adults. As adults, they're hardy as heck. As babies, maybe not so much. So keep an eye on them when they're babies. Ventilation is also really important, and just you have to keep them warm and dry. That's true for all the birds. You have to keep them warm and dry. So they're also more vulnerable to predators because of their size. So secure housing is a must. You've got to keep them safe. Still, if you're limited on land or want something quiet and efficient, quail are a fantastic starter animal. They're easy. Okay? You put them in a small hutch, not too small, they still need space to walk around. But you put them in a little hutch and you look after them properly, and they'll give you eggs or be able to be processed for meat, and you'll be pretty happy with them. They're easy. Now let's talk about rabbits. This one's a little more controversial. I don't personally eat rabbit, even though we raise rabbits. We raise a hardy meat breed. I don't eat rabbit. To be fair, I have alpha-gal and can't eat red meat anyway. But I don't eat rabbit, but I do raise rabbits for the surrounding farms. Rabbits are a favorite for many small farms because they don't take up that much room, to be honest, and they reproduce pretty quick. If you're looking for a meat animal that doesn't require pasture or a huge barn, rabbits might be a solid option. Now, they can be raised in hutches or cages or colony setups. I like colony setups. They don't need a ton of special equipment. We use oversized dog kennels, 8x8 dog kennels, and they're just set up for the rabbits. We have smaller pens for breeding, but our main group, they're just in dog kennels. They eat hay, pellets, and fresh greens, and their manure is one of the best natural fertilizers you can get for your garden. Unlike chicken manure, rabbit manure doesn't have to be composted before use. That makes it really convenient. You can just throw it on your garden. They do come with their own challenges, though. Rabbits are extremely sensitive to heat. Okay, we get 40 below here, and they're always fine. Summers can be difficult for rabbits, and you might lose a rabbit or two if you are not on top of keeping them cool. Okay? Housing needs to stay clean, dry, and well ventilated. They also need protection from predators because pretty much everything wants to eat a rabbit, okay? They look yummy. And if you don't control their breeding, you can quickly end up with more rabbits than you can handle. So keep boys and girls separate unless you want some babies, okay? Control the breeding and you'll control the population. That said, rabbits are quiet, efficient, and beginner friendly once you understand their very basic needs. They're also a great way to ease into breeding and to learn about genetics since you'll see results pretty quickly. They're a good trial and error species, so you can kind of mix and match your bucks and your does and find out what gives you the best results. And because they're only pregnant for 30 days and the babies grow fairly quick, you can kind of learn fairly quick. All right. But they're not without their drawbacks, and you don't want to overbreed, right? You don't want so many rabbits that you're absolutely overwhelmed with rabbits. And if you are going to get into rabbits, highest quality you can afford is ideal. Another fantastic beginner animal is ducks. And yes, we have ducks, many ducks. Ducks are hardy birds that often do better than chickens in wet climates. So if you have a really wet climate, you might lean into ducks a little bit. They're less prone to certain diseases, and many breeds are excellent egg layers. In fact, some ducks outlay chickens when conditions are just right. One of the joys of raising ducks is their personalities. Ducks are curious and they're chatty and they love splashing around in water. If you have a pond or even just a kiddie pool, your ducks are going to be in heaven. The downside? Ducks are kind of messy, not going to lie. They love water, and wherever they splash, you'll end up with mud. Okay? They're the great creators of mud. I swear they are the creators of mud everywhere on the planet. It's their fault. Blame them for the mud. Their bedding also gets wet faster than chicken bedding, and they can create a mess around their waterers. Keep the waterers out of the house, of the duck house. You don't want your duck house flooding. The ducks might like it. It's not fun to clean up. You also need to keep their housing secure at night, just like chickens, because things like eating ducks. Still, ducks are resilient and forgiving animals. If you don't mind the extra cleanup, they're a wonderful addition to a beginner's farm. Plus, duck eggs are richer and larger than chicken eggs, and they really are excellent when it comes to baking. I prefer duck eggs in my cookies and cakes than to chicken eggs. They're fantastic. Now I want to talk about goats. Goats are a bit more care, a bit more setup, but for beginners with a little bit extra space and really good fencing, they can actually be incredibly rewarding. Goats are pretty versatile. They can provide milk or meat or just companionship. They're also natural brush clearers, meaning they'll happily munch down weeds, briars, or even small trees. Their playful personalities make them fun to have around the farm, and they often become fast favorites. In fact, behind me, I'm not good at this. Right there, above my finger, that's Arwen. She's a sweetheart, and we love her. Okay? Goats are really easy to raise when done right. And yes, there's more chickens gathering behind me. We're just going with it. But goats are known to be escape artists. And that can be frustrating. Okay? It can be really frustrating. If there's a weak spot in your fence, they're going to find it. They also need regular hoof trimming, access to minerals, and careful parasite management. So they're a step up from the poultry, but if you want to get out of poultry and beyond rabbits, goats might be your next step. Okay? They are herd animals, so you generally can't have just one. They'll be lonely and stressed without a buddy. It's possible that they can have another hoofed animal that's not a goat as friends. Steer clear of donkeys. Donkeys, even mini donkeys, tend to really hate goats. So generally, you shouldn't house donkeys and goats together. So if you really are intent on having donkeys, you might want to skip the goats. But if you're ready for the commitment, goats can be an excellent next step in your farming journey. Just be sure you're prepared for their mischief, because goats are mischief wrapped up in a nice little ball. Mischief with horns. That's what goats are. Now, I want to talk about one that might surprise you. I want to talk about bees. Bees are not your typical barnyard animal. They're not soft and cuddly. They don't have feathers, but they're fantastic for small farms. A single hive can produce gallons of honey each year, plus beeswax for candles and other projects. And of course, bees are crucial pollinators, so they'll boost the productivity of your garden, orchard, or pasture. All in all, they're fantastic. Now, I will warn you, while bees are not difficult, the startup costs for beekeeping are higher than for chickens or rabbits or even goats. You need hives and protective clothing, and there's a bunch of tools that you need in order to gather the honey. So there is a higher bar to entry. You will have to pay a little more to be in the bee world. It just costs more money. And there's also a bit of a learning curve. You'll need to understand seasonal hive management, how to prevent swarms, and how to deal with pests like mites. But once you get the hang of it, bees don't require daily care the way other animals do, making them really easy. A weekly or biweekly hive inspection is often enough. Generally, you're good with that. They're also the perfect choice if you're limited on space, since a hive or two really doesn't take up that much room. And they're not aggressive unless you're bugging them. Don't bug them. But they just kind of do their bee thing. They're good for the environment, they're good for you. And they produce something that we like. If you're allergic, you probably want to skip the bees. But if you're not allergic to stings and you're curious about something different, bees can be an incredibly rewarding beginner project. Okay, they can be a lot of fun. So think about bees, do your research, and maybe talk to some people who've raised bees for decades and learn the tips and tricks that you're going to need. But once set up, bees basically just do their own bee thing. Okay, so bees are not difficult once you get going. They're difficult to start sometimes, but once you know what you're doing, it's pretty easy. You're the beekeeper, you wear the suit, you do the fun stuff, you get the honey, and you maintain your hive, and you make sure they're healthy and that you don't have a queen that died. Sometimes there's issues. There are some issues that come up with beekeeping, but there are issues that come up with anything. So think about it. So there you have it, my top beginner-friendly farm animals: chickens, quail, rabbits, ducks, goats, and maybe even bees if you want to branch out. Each of these animals does teach you a valuable skill without overwhelming you. And they'll help you build your confidence as you grow your farm. And who knows, maybe you're going to want to graduate to sheep, horses, or even cattle. Maybe. See what the future holds. That's about it for us here today at Anderson Acres. I would love to hear from you down in the comments below. Which of these animals do you already have? Which ones are you thinking about starting with first? Sharing your experiences helps other new farmers too, so fill up that comment section. Thanks so much for spending some time with me today, and we'll see you tomorrow.